All right, quiet places. Let's go. Let's talk about U2's The Joshua Tree because this is one of my favorite albums. So, this isn't a travel video like a lot of my other videos on this channel, but I thought I'd try something different. I made one about Into the Wild and how it influenced my travels. And I think the Joshua Tree that has also influenced my travels, but it's also been something that it causes me to reflect on my travels. It causes me to think back my travels, to think about what I did there, to remember it, to remember all the great memories. And I feel like in their work of art that I'm associating with people who have felt the same way I have, that have sought to get out of travel what I've looked to get out of travel, who've really enjoyed traveling through America in the same way. And it's great to share this with somebody. One quote that people focus on from Into the Wild is, "Happiness is only real when shared." And I think this is an example of that. I like to share my travels with people and get their reactions and talk about my travels. And I like to hear about their adventures too. So this album resonates with me on so many levels. It's almost hard for me to explain it all in this type of video where I'm actually driving right now. I'm traveling right now. I have a destination is going to take me over an hour to get to. So I'm working on these type of videos where it's not planned, it's not scripted. You're just hearing me talk like I might talk to you in a conversation if you were sitting next to me. So it's a little hard to form ideas and thoughts without writing it down. Some people are able to do it, but anyway, let's just get to it. The Joshua Tree. Fantastic album musically. It's from 1987, so it's right in that era where so much great music was being released. You have so many icons of the 80s besides U2, which is crazy to think about because you might say they were on top of the world, but that is a crowded place in the 80s because you had Madonna, you had Michael Jackson, you had Prince, you had Bruce Springsteen. There's so many. There's so much great music and so much different types of music. There's very much an 80s sound that is identifiable, but there was so many genres at that time that were flying high. Everything from punk to hair metal to heartland rock and R&B. There was so much going on, and I think U2 really they were setting out to do something great at this time. You can kind of see their evolution with their earlier albums, which I also enjoy, but are very different. Boy and War, where you can see some of the genesis of them being this thoughtful band, but at the same time the music is more unpolished, more punk rock. It's different. And then there's somewhat of an evolution with the Unforgettable Fire, and you have a really socially conscious song like Pride in the Name of Love, and other more slowed down songs. You definitely wouldn't consider the Unforgettable Fire a punk album by any means. And there's reflections on things. It's more reflective on history, on politics, on philosophy. There's and it's slowed down a bit. And then you have the unforgettable. You have the Joshua Tree, which right from the start you look at the album cover and there's these serious young men staring out into the American desert, and right then and there I know it's something else. I feel like there's just something grand to it from the start. And so the Joshua Tree and me and my travels, I'm not at first I went through this like kind of song by song, but I think if you're listening to this, you probably already are very familiar with the album, or at least most of the hit songs. I want to say that growing up, I knew I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It would be played on radio, a lot of the radio that I'd hear growing up from wherever, if I was in a store, if I was in somebody's car. It's something I knew about, With or Without You, I knew about growing up. I didn't think much of these songs, to tell you the truth. It didn't really affect me. I am, to be honest, like I still haven't found what I'm looking for, a little irritating, just in the sense like I never thought about it as a child, what the deeper meaning of it was. It just seemed like this overly done, overly polished song with this chorus that after a while became a little irritating, because for those of you who don't know, maybe a little younger, we didn't have a choice of what we would listen to back then. So you'd get in the car and somebody would turn on the radio and you might hear I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, and then let's say you were hanging out with a different family or friend and they turn on the radio and you hear it again, even if it was a different radio station, and on for years and years. So sometimes really good songs would be spoiled in that way. Then I heard about, I think it was more some videos on the internet. I think it was Professor of Rock. He has a good channel, and he loves the 80s, and he made a whole video about U2's 80s catalog. And he's really great at describing things. He's almost, well, he is a fantastic writer on his channel, and I think me and him have really similar tastes. And I started, the way he was describing the Joshua Tree in such with such praise and with such terms that made me think that I should look into this album more. And once I did, and really listened to it by myself, not with other people, where, because there's a certain mood maybe that is appropriate for listening to an album like this. It's an album where you maybe want to set aside some time. You want to be by yourself, maybe with the headphones on, maybe not even at the gym. I often like listening to it when I have a big project at work that I know is going to take me hours. Not one that's I'm going to be done in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. Because to really get the full scale of how great this album is, I think it requires listening to it from start to finish. And the set list is important too, because what better song can you have than Where the Streets Have No Name? It's the ultimate opener for a grand album of this sort, where it starts off kind of low volume and builds, and it's this song that has this just great chorus that speaks to a kind of longing and frustration at the same time of going where the streets have no name. And it's such a, there's so many levels to so many of these songs, like Where the Streets Have No Name, where on one hand, it's a call for peace. He wants to go where the streets have no name, which originally, as I've heard, the seed of the idea of this song was from Northern Ireland, where certain names of streets have connotations about if it's a Catholic or Protestant neighborhood, and this is, of course, related to the long-running conflict there that went on for hundreds of years and maybe still does to some extent, although certainly not as bad as it was in the 70s and 80s when Bono and the others in the group were growing up. But as a traveler, as somebody, a solo traveler, this freedom of going somewhere and not really caring about whether it's this street or that street, just wandering, even being in a forest, in hiking in a desert. There's no street names. There's this sense of freedom, of boundless energy, of being able to just detach from this world of maps and GPS and getting somewhere efficiently and taking the quickest way, just taking maybe the long way just because you feel like it, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to take this interstate to get to that other interstate faster. Just having that time and having that freedom. I will never forget one of my first big bike tours was in the southern coast of Maine, and I'm crossing over from Portland, the biggest city in Maine. I'm crossing over into South Portland, which is a suburb, and I'm in the north, one of the farthest northeastern points of the United States, aside from Alaska. Well, Alaska's northwest, but yeah, of the northeastern United States. I'm up in Maine, and I'm crossing the Casco Bay Bridge into South Portland, and I'm about to join the Eastern Trail, which is eventually going to go from Maine to Florida. And there's just the feeling that I could just keep riding right now. Of course, I didn't do that, and I had, by that point in my life, I had obligations and responsibilities and a job and all that. But there was something exhilarating about the feeling that I could, not necessarily that I'd want to, but like, here we go. I like, the possibility is there, and there I could go straight to California if I wanted to. I could work something out. I could walk there. I could take the bike. I could take trains or something like that. The possibilities there, and just that feeling was exhilarating. You know, in Into the Wild, Chris McCandless, he cited the Italian Primo Levi, the Italian author, who said sometimes it's not about actually being strong, but about feeling strong, measuring yourself up against the elements, and that's what I felt then. I'm out there, and it would be an arduous journey for sure, but just the sense that I had this freedom on this bike, on my own, with just even beyond that, just being able to walk, if that makes any sense. Anyway, that's the feeling I get when I listen to Where the Streets Have No Name. I understand and I appreciate it for the context where it can fit into the conflict in Northern Ireland. That makes me love it so much more. But the feeling I get is that love I have of where I'm traveling on my own, and I can go east, west, whatever, and that I have, even if I don't have 6 months to do it, I don't have years to just if I have 2 or 3 days where I can just kind of make up my own rules, that's an exhilarating feeling for me. And the way he says it is just with this, you can tell this love of that, this desire. There's a desire in the way that he sings this song. And I love, of course, him speaking about, I want to touch the flame, I want to go where the streets have no name. Like a certain, not, when I travel, I love to, the best for me is being really out there in nature, in the place I want to be at. It doesn't even have to be in some remote area in the forest or the desert. If I'm in a big city, I want to be out there. I want to pass by the restaurants. I want to see the smoke coming up from the street, feel the rain. Even if it's out there, that's enough for me. It doesn't matter whether it's in the desert or the forest or the city. I want to really be there and touch the flame. That's how I connect to this song on such a deep level. And the same with I still haven't found what I'm looking for, because that speaks to maybe the spiritual side of traveling and the contemplative side to it. When I'd be when I was in Utah and I'm done for the day, I'm up in the mountains over 6,000 feet up, and it's freezing outside. I'm in the tent and I'm just reading books and I have nothing else to think about, or have miles and miles to go in the day, and after a while just start to shut off and think about things, or sometimes think about nothing at all. And you're never going to get all the questions answered. That's the frustrating part, but the great part of it too. And the great part of these types of traveling is how sometimes I do get a greater understanding of things. Sometimes that time to reflect, that time to think, does allow me to figure things out. It allows me to calm down, to escape the anxieties of the day, but then also in a grounded way, in a calm way, to think about problems, think about issues, to think about the world. And even in like a song like Bullet the Blue Sky, I think it still reminds me of that, because, and this isn't a stretch too, just this kind of offbeat song about the America's involvement in Guatemala or Nicaragua, Mexico, or these Central American countries. I mean, you have that after With or Without You, kind of what you'd expect from a rock song about Bono's relationship with his wife and the strain of being a rock star and a husband, and then other songs about philosophical topics and religion, and then there's a song about the United States involvement in Central America. But I mean, why not? If if you're going on long solo travels, I find my mind just might start to think about things like that. And I have thought about things like that. And I'm listening to podcasts at the same time. While I'm looking at trees and buildings and the path, there's a lot going on. And I really love what really makes this such a great album for me is not just the hit singles, because just on their own they would be enough, and they're in some way related to these topics of adventure, travel, spirituality, religion. But the B-sides, Red Hill Mining Town, Trip Through Your Wires, Running to Stand Still, these make it so complete, like a complete thought. Because those more country tinge songs, I want to say, Trip Through Your Wires, Running to Stand Still, They're quiet. They have like a slower. They're not like, they don't have great choruses, but they put me in the mindset of being in the American West, of traveling, of feeling that sun in the American West beating down on me, and there's nothing between me and the sun. I feel like I'm there. I'm in some western town. I'm in Redding, California. I'm in Heber, Utah. I'm out in like the canyons. For there, I'm not thinking of the cities. I'm out in the American West. I'm out in these remote towns in California, in Nevada, and Utah. And the kind of the country sound to it further places me there. And they're not like singles. They're not songs you want to maybe listen to on their own, but as part of the album, they are 100% integral to it. Now, we also have just in God's Country, just like a tribute to this, to traveling through America. Just, what else can you say? It's God's country. Sometimes I'd be really out there in these places. I traveled through so many parts of California, parts of Nevada, Utah. Those are the western states that I've been to. Texas. And what else can you say? You're in God's country. There's fields, there's farms, there's mountains, there's desert, and that's really the only thing I can feel. And just all the sights, all the sounds of it. I love being in these places. I can never forget the time I'm traveling down. I was traveling down the Pacific Coast Highway. I didn't know about the Pacific Coast Highway. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm staying in San Francisco, and it was just, I was there for a few days. I had a lot of time, and I said, let me just go travel down the coast. And I if I would have planned it more, I didn't even know it would be this spectacular scenery going all the way from San Francisco to Santa Cruz. And I could have kept going to Monterey, to LA, just absolutely beautiful with the Pacific Coast on one side and these farms and towns on the other, and looking at the people surfing in the waves and the California sun. For me, this is what the great parts of life are made up of. And that's what I think of when I hear In God's Country. It puts me back in those places. It makes me appreciate that I've been there and appreciate these places for what they are, and makes me feel great about being able to live in this world. And not just America, the political entity, or the politics of America and the history of America and all that, but being in this land and just feeling grateful to have been in this land. Look, I have always wanted to travel internationally, and in fact, when I was a teenager in high school, that was more my goal, was wanting to go everywhere in the world, and I still do. I really want to, but I got involved in things that made it a little difficult for me to do that. But luckily, I've been able to travel through so many parts of the United States, and that's been amazing in itself. And I have gotten to travel internationally too, but certainly not to the extent that I have traveled through the United States, being to more than half of the states, of the 50 states, and including Hawaii. And I should say too, I went on, I traveled solo in Hawaii too, in the island of Kauai. I went on a a bike tour there, and that was spectacular as well. Almost similar to the California coast. So, Red Hill Mining Town, again, just puts me in the context of the American West. And really the song is not about that at all. It's something to do with like a miners' strike in the United Kingdom, I think. So neither America nor even U2's home country of Ireland. It's speaking about the UK. And I think maybe what there's the incident that they're speaking about in the UK is maybe more well known over there. I don't mean to downplay it, but when I hear Red Hill Mining Town, it's really putting me in the American West, because I'm thinking of the Red Hills, and particularly the ones that I saw in Utah, which was absolutely unforgettable. So, what a great work of art. I can't praise it enough. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to pull over. I still have almost an hour. Maybe I'll think of something else to talk about, but I think I was fairly concise in this. Just really want to show my appreciation for this album, and I'm so grateful. It's been such a both an influence to me and also an inspiration. I feel like connected to the sentiment of that the band had, that Bono had when he wrote it, but also it's just a great, as a work of art, for that affects me on a level where I feel good listening to it. It brings back things that I've done, and it makes me want to get back out there and do these things that I love. So, Joshua Tree, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I have. And like and subscribe, everybody. We'll have some more.